The marketing team over at AMD does not seem to be having any problems directly attacking Nvidia. Well, I guess this time they didn't say Nvidia, but they said, stay safe this holiday season, and tweeted out a picture of some normal 8-pin power connectors. So just doubling down on people's fears of the RTX 4090 power adapter. And, you know, the 4080 just launched, similar connector. It runs at a lot lower power, so we'd hope to not see those kinds of issues. But do we finally have an actual answer to what's going on with these power connectors? Still no official response from Nvidia. But we do have Gamers Nexus, who, you know, I was extremely impressed with this video. Now, this has a lot of views. I'm guessing most people who watch my channel have already seen this video, so I don't want to dwell on it. But for anybody who hasn't, this is actually very important information. What is causing these? So unlike a lot of other channels, mine's just been reporting on the various theories out there, and I keep stressing that I don't think the problem's been completely solved and for sure identified up until this point. Other channels have given a lot of thoughts, you know, on what is going on here. Well, Gamers Nexus has actually finally been the first one to reproduce the problem. And they also paid to have a failed cord that actually happened out in the wild that they got a hold of, sent off to a failure analysis lab to see what, you know, actual professionals on this type of topic think happened. My understanding of this video, in summary, but you should watch it, I link all my sources in the description, is that the main issue is probably user error, but user error that has increased likelihood over old power connectors due to the connector design. Basically, it's very easy to not have these fully seated, and even if they're almost fully seated, that could wiggle out over time and become less fully seated, and then you can get improper contact, increasing resistance, heat, and it can melt down fairly quickly. This seems to be the most likely candidate for what's going on here, although the failure analysis lab did also say that foreign object debris inside of the connector can cause problems. And so, as Steve points out in the Gamers Nexus video, constantly taking yours out to check if there's a problem is more likely to cause, you could get more foreign object debris, although some of that could just be from the manufacturing, all of that. Anyway, watch the full video, but it's looking like if you are very sure that you have fully seated the plug, you're probably fine. Although let's also be clear that while this investigation does seem very thorough, it would be nice to get an official statement from Nvidia regarding the issue and see I'm sure they're doing some kind of research on the topic on how to best, profit on the situation or lose as little profits as possible. But part of that could involve actually correctly identifying the problem, right? And hopefully we would get word from them on that. Now, despite any of these issues and AMD directly attacking the price, performance, features, and power connector of the RTX 4080, if you try to buy one right now, most of them are completely out of stock. All I'm seeing on PC Part Picker is one model available for over $1,600. That is above the price of a 4090. And this is one of the models that's supposed to be MSRPing at the baseline $1,200, but it's selling way above that on Amazon. So looking like these are still selling out, although I will say that despite the high price of the 4080, and despite it actually still selling out, I did check throughout the day, and it felt like they were popping up in stock and staying there a little bit longer than the 4090 did. So I don't think it's surprising that the first wave, sells out at this price point. I'm hoping that, as the months go on, like in a normal GPU cycle in previous generations, not the last one where things went crazy with crypto and all that, it was normal for GPUs to sell out on launch day, but then the question is, do they come back in stock and stay there quickly? And we really need to see that. Now, another small issue you're probably not having, but you could be, is some RTX 4080s and 4090s seem to give a black screen on launch, and this is not something that can be fixed through a driver update. It looks like you actually have to update the firmware. So if you're having that issue, NVIDIA has a tool here, and I will again link this in my description, that should be able to update the firmware, and I guess it's a compatibility issue with certain UEFI BIOSes. Now, again, if you're not having the problem, you shouldn't try to fix a problem that you're not having, if you're not having compatibility issues with yours. I actually wonder if I'm having compatibility issue with my 4080. My 4090 is fine, but a couple of times when I was working on my 4080 review, I'd hit start on my PC, and it like wouldn't start. I would just be at a black screen, but then I just turn it off, turn it back on again, and then it did start just fine. I didn't have time to dig into that issue, and I haven't checked if this solves it yet. But anyway, and that's on a 4080 Founders Edition that I was sent as the review sample. Now, speaking of new GPUs, I do want to talk about this. I mentioned that this was being launched the other day, but right now we have AMD and Nvidia as the main GPU suppliers. Intel's trying to hop into the game, but more competition could be good for the consumer. Now, right now, this Moore Threads MTT S80 is a China exclusive. But I think in general, getting more competition in this space is a good thing. And there are some, I think the review embargo lifted yesterday. And so there are some reviews out there, but keep in mind this is a China exclusive thing. I shouldn't dwell too long on it because I don't think most of my viewers are directly impacted on this. But this could be interesting for the future of the GPU segment if we did get another competitor here. Now, it's looking like it's offering over 100 FPS in certain esports titles at 4K. Now, interesting to look at esports in 4K, but when we get into the actual results, there's a reason for that. Relatively speaking, this GPU compares better versus its competitors at higher resolutions than it does at lower resolutions. But it's also just not even as fast as an RTX 3060. And also there's huge amounts of compatibility issues. There's only a few games. I think it's literally like 11 games that it actually is optimized for. Now, there's more games that will run on it, but aren't very optimized and will have performance issues. Also, this is the first card to market with a PCIe 5.0 interface, so at least has that going for it. And it has 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory on a 128 gigabyte per second bandwidth, which doesn't seem a lot. But anyway, they have clarified their DirectX support. The DirectX support, I'm looking at this particular article, I don't know if it's going to be listed here, but it's DX9 and then some DX11 support, but not full DX11 support. And you're seeing some benchmarks of it in synthetic benchmarks like Unigen here. And here's 1080p DX9, 4K DX9, 1080p DX11, 4K DX11. And this is compared against an RTX 3060, and then the MTT S80 is on these brown bars. Here's OCL bandwidth test. Again, the green bar is the RTX 3060, and here it looks like it's getting some wins on that at least. And then fill rate single texturing and fill rate multi-texturing. And then we see 3D Mark, 1080p, and 4K. So there you go. Now, it's supporting it looks like support for only 60 games, and most of them are Chinese-only titles, and support for anything beyond DX9 is pretty low. Now, there, like I said, were some full reviews out there, but in English, a lot of all we're getting is these kind of roundups reporting on those, like the one I just showed you from WCCF Tech. We also have video cards reporting on the same reviews. They're claiming it's GTX 1060 performance, and they're highlighting the idle power. This seems to be another problem, guys. At idle, this card seems to pull 110 watts. Guys, my RX 6600 is 100 watts at full load, okay? And this is idle power. So anyway, this card is clearly not perfect, and no one outside of China should really consider getting one other than maybe just to play with the thing. But I don't know. It's interesting to see another competitor in here, and it does actually at least play games and stuff, although a limited sample. And I should quit droning on about this because you guys are probably less interested in this than me. I just think it's really cool to get another player in the market. But speaking of GPUs you might actually care about, We have Nvidia announcing, hey, look, it looks like I could wear his leather jacket if I line this photo up right. Well, whatever. Anyway, the point is, Nvidia is announcing a CES 2023 GeForce special address on the 3rd of January. So we would expect to see some sort of 40 class GPU showing up at this announcement. Now, which one would we expect it to be? Well, remember how there was supposed to be a 4080 12GB, but then it got unlaunched? Well, it's probably going to get relaunched as a 4070 Ti at this event. That's what we would be expecting. And WCCF Tech has claimed their own sources basically confirming this, that we would see the RTX 4070 Ti on the 3rd of January. And they're even claiming to know that it will actually launch on the 5th of January. And they're saying, and they'd reported on that earlier, and they feel like this announcement of this keynote is just further confirmation. Now, to be clear, we don't fully have the 4070 Ti confirmed by Nvidia, but WCCF Tech seems very confident. Now, they don't always get things right, so keep that in mind. Now, what a lot of people are interested in is a card more like an RTX 4060. And while we're getting a whole bunch of articles reporting on this all of a sudden, when I dug into the actual source, I'm less convinced this is anything other than speculation, although speculation from someone who would be knowledgeable on the topic. There's various sites reporting on this. I pulled up the video cards one, saying RTX 4060 rumored to be as fast as an RTX 3070 and launched by June of 2023. Now, where this is coming from is from the Lenovo China Gaming Desktop Product Planning Manager. But when you look at the actual post, let me slide out of the way. The actual post says, many friends said to wait for, and again, there's probably, machine learning translation issues here, like we tend to get on this sort of thing. But it says, many friends said to wait for 4060, although I don't know what 4060 looks like. I don't know what 4060 looks like. Let me make a guess. So, in other words, unless he's just claiming this is a guess and actually knows, this is just speculation. He's speculating that we'd see a 20% performance uplift over the 3060, which would be about equal to the 3070 performance level. The power consumption being lower than that of a 3060. It's estimating 150 to 180 watts, the price being about 10% higher than a 3060, the price of a 3060 Ti. The DLSS 3 and NVENC has also been improved. And I think the 618 is a reference to in China, a big like sales day thing, holiday, something like that. So in other words, I don't know, let me make a guess. In other words, it's pretty reasonable to expect a 4060 to come out next year, cost a bit more than a 3060, and perform like a next step up from the previous generation, but maybe with features like DLSS 3. So while I think all of that sounds reasonable, I think it's interesting that we're getting a lot of reports. I don't know, some headlines have been better than others, but to be clear, that sounds like pretty weak evidence that it's anything other than speculation. Now, the artist formerly reported by me as Chili Dog, but I was corrected in the comment section that says Chilled Dog, not Chili Dog. Good point, guys. Maybe I was just hungry. Anyway, talking about some AMD CPUs, we're seeing a 7900 non-X, 7700 non-X, and 7600 non-X. Now, this is also known as Golden Mango, and Golden Mango has reported accurately on hardware leaks in the past, so I think this is worth looking into, and I think we're all expecting these non-X versions to be coming out. They're giving us some max frequencies and saying that this should be Q1 of next year, and interestingly also reporting some pricing and that they'll all be 65 watts. Now, if you compare this pricing to the previous generation, like the WCCF Tech article reporting on this topic notes that that's $120 cheaper for the 7900 versus the 7900X, $70 cheaper for the 7700 versus the 7700X, and $70 cheaper for the 7600 versus the 7600X. Percentage-wise, that's a pretty big chunk off the asking price, and performance-wise, I would expect it to only be a few percent. Although we'll see. Now, the video cards article has nicely kind of lined this all up in a table with the current generation cards and the speculated leaked versions here are the ones in purple. And again, you can see the power consumption is brought back quite a bit, but we'd expect them to still be able to hit, you know, pretty similar clock speeds, all of that, cut down a little bit, and then enjoy a lower price tag. If the motherboard pricing and DDR5 pricing also continues to fall, then these could start being much more attractive options for budget-conscious users. Although at some point next year, we do expect to see an X3D version of at least an 8-core and possibly a 6-core, and those would be the most interesting gaming processors of the bunch. And I'll certainly be looking out for that. Now we're seeing the RTX 3050 laptop GPU spotted in what's probably a new Samsung Galaxy Book Pro. And this is showing up in Puget Bench results. And you can see here, video card, NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3050 laptop GPU. And this, again, the rest of the specs here and the fact that it's Samsung with all of these and everything like that is what means this is probably a Samsung Galaxy Book Pro. Now we do get a few scores here overall for the laptop, and anyway, according to the VideoCard's article, the leaked RTX 4050 score is around 17 to 32% faster than an RTX 3050 in the same test. And again, speculation that CES of 2023 in January would be another place we might see that. In other words, the where was it? The NVIDIA announcement that WCCF Tech is confident is a 4070 Ti, and they certainly could be correct. That could also be laptop GPUs, or it could be both. And actually, that's what I expect. I would expect it to be both laptop GPUs and a 4070 Ti, which is your rebranded 4080 12 gigabyte that got unlaunched. Okay. Now, we're in other CPU news. We're seeing AMD Ryzen Threadripper 7000 Storm Peak CPU featuring 96 Zen 4 cores and 480 megabyte cache spotted. Now, interesting, that's a lot of cores and whatnot, but since my channel focuses mostly on gaming here, I don't think I'm going to dwell too long on this, because if you buy one of these for gaming, you're doing it wrong. Okay, these are for heavy, heavy productivity. But man, 96 cores on a 7000 series CPU is going to be crazy. Let's do a few last quick things here at the end. So we're continuing to see an expansion of Intel's XeSS and AMD's FSR into more games. This one is Martha is Dead. And digging into this does seem to be Fidelity FX FSR 2.1. So in other words, it does appear to be the 2.1 version. So while some games are seeing a 2.2, I think like we saw in, what was it? The race car game, Forza Horizon 5. I benchmark it all the time. I even play it. Couldn't remember the name. Anyway, that one seemed to get a 2.2 version. 2.1 is still updated compared to 2.0 like we saw in God of War, that kind of thing. And it's nice to see these things being added in. To games, you know, to try to catch up with the support, because DLSS is currently ahead in games supported. Now, also in news of Intel XeSS, it's now available in Unreal Engine projects through a plugin. It looks like in Unreal Engine 4.0, 4.26, and 5.0. And while that doesn't mean a lot to gamers right now, this is good news for future, because if it's updated into those engines, it'll be very easy for those games made in those engines to then support Intel's XeSS technology. And to be clear, XeSS does look and work very well on Arc GPUs. It's just the fallback version for AMD and Nvidia that doesn't seem to look or work as well. Anyway, speaking of Intel and updating things, I think it's fair to report that they have been getting driver updates. They just got one. They are getting a day one driver for Marvel's upcoming Spider-Man game. Or upcoming, is that launching today? I think that's launching today or soon. Anyway, and Call of Duty Warzone 2.0 just came out. And again, they've got their driver specifically for supporting that, as well as Sonic Frontiers and Dysterra. And they're also announcing some game performance improvements on this driver. So Chorus, Dirt 5, Far Cry 6, Forza Horizon 5, Ghostwire Tokyo, Gotham Knights, Marvel's Guardian of the Galaxy, and Sniper Elite 5. Now, none of these performance numbers are massive, But if we just slowly over time get driver improvements and performance improvements, the Arc GPUs will get better over time. They've also fixed some issues with Doom Eternal running in Vulkan with some flickering. Rainbow Six Siege, which is an extremely popular game still, may experience lower than expected game performance. That is now a fixed issue, so good news for people if you're wanting to play that. Death Stranding Director's Cut, fixing some flickering issues. Forza Horizon 5, fixing some corruption lines with MSAA. But there's still a lot of known issues, and but there was a lot of issues in Arc's control panel fixed. So many that I'm not going to read through them all, but like lots of issues in that. So anyway, the point is that it's good to see Intel continuing to work on their driver, and this continue to do so, and their GPUs will hopefully be in good shape, and especially hopefully their drivers will be in good shape in time for their next generation, where I'm hoping they'll be a lot more competitive. Now, speaking of Call of Duty Warzone 2 updates and support for that, I'll also mention that the launch seems to be beating Warzone 1 and Modern Warfare 2, and Virgin Media is reporting network traffic with their busiest gaming traffic day on record. So it looks like Warzone 2 launch has been quite popular. So anyway, I'm going to have to get my kids up and ready for school, so I hope all of you have an excellent day.